All right, Friday forecast time. Michigan State, a road trip to East Lansing. Sean, before we start talking about the Spartans, let's talk about what happened last week. An outstanding performance overall, but yet on Monday, Matt Rule says, hey, it wasn't maybe as good as we first thought.
Yeah, 31-14, but, the fumbles, the 3 lost fumbles by the quarterbacks, the lost fumble on special teams. I mean, there were definitely a few things that you would like to get cleaned up. I think the weather played to Nebraska's advantage. You can say one of the interceptions was strictly due to the weather, the way the ball hung up in the air. So there were a lot of things that broke right for Nebraska, a lot of positives. But again, we all know, Andy, this team is not, a complete team. They're missing so many of their players. I believe 8 of their 11 day one starters aren't on the field right now.
And the Huskers yet still manage to keep winning 5 of the last 6. They've won 3 in a row for the first time in 7 years and can clinch bowl eligibility against Michigan State. And I think they found a running back in Emmett Johnson, have they not?
Yeah, Emmett Johnson, the last 2 weeks, has taken the majority of the carries. He's had close to 150 yards over the last 2 games, which for this offense, that's a really quality number. He's not pushing 20 carries. He's kind of more in that 13-ish a game type touches. But I thought the big play was finishing off the game with that inside run touchdown. It was a 24-14 game, and that really iced things for Nebraska to put away an opponent that made it a little interesting there after that Jeff Sims fumble.
No question about it. Matt Rule says, as long as his team leads the Big Ten in rushing and is first against the run on defense, they're going to be okay, and that's really the script they followed this year, have they not?
Yeah, and years ago, former Nebraska offensive coordinator Sean Watson said this to us in the media group. He goes, look, the best teams in college football always can do 2 things. Stop the run the football. Go back to those years, Tim Tebow, Florida, Urban Meyer, they always did those things. He just said, teams throw it, but when it comes down to running it, they can always run it and they can always stop you running it. And that's what Nebraska's building on. They're not a great throwing team. They're not a great pass protection team. There's some deficiencies at times with this team, and the injuries have happened. But they still continue to find ways to run it and find ways to stop the run.
Interesting challenge ahead for the Huskers. They're facing a team at Michigan State that have lost 6 in a row, and yet this is their senior day. They're playing their last home game in Detroit at Ford Field, so this is their final game at Spartan Stadium. Just a unique season. The Mel Tucker situation, now Harlan Barnett's now the head coach. What are they looking at in terms of Nebraska? What are they going to be facing on Saturday against the Spartans?
This 2023 schedule kind of is the gift that continues to keep giving for Nebraska as far as the way these matchups break. Because a week later, you get Maryland, who's kind of on a similar slide. They could come into Lincoln with a 4-game losing streak. But Michigan State, 6-game losing streak. You got a lot of players probably with possibly 1 foot out the door, transfer portal. A lot of those coaches are probably thinking, hey, I only got a few weeks left here. I got to find a new job. So I just think the timing of this matchup at 11 a.m., 12 p.m. local time out there, great opportunity. I'm not expecting a real raucous crowd. I mean, Andy, we've been to East Lansing 3 or 4 times, and it's been a night game or a 3:30 game every time. So this will be the first time we've seen that stadium for a 11 a.m./noon kick since Nebraska's been in the Big Ten.
And one final note about special teams. It's interesting that special teams helped the Nebraska Cornhuskers win that game against Purdue, and yet the last time they went to East Lansing, we saw special teams cost the game against Michigan State. Kind of an interesting juxtaposition as we go into this Saturday.
Yeah, you just think about the moments of the Scott Frost era, that shanked punt on a rugby punt that goes the wrong direction. I mean, Nebraska's defense did not allow a first down the entire second half in East Lansing, and they figured out a way to lose that game. The 21 team was a really talented team. They just didn't know how to win games. This team is not as talented as that team, Nebraska, right now, but they're winning games. They're figuring out how to win games, close games, and they've got a coach that the players are behind. I think that's the difference right now. When you go back to the Frost era, it just didn't ever seem in sync. Here, everyone's in sync, and Matt Rule is running this program, and the players are all behind his vision.
And guys buying in. Old guys, young guys alike. Guys like Quentin Newsome, who I think at first maybe was probably on the fence, like, what's this all about? Now you saw he had one of the biggest plays, if not one of the biggest play on Saturday's game, that punt or the kick block for a touchdown.
You know what Bill Moose once said? When you win, all boats rise. Yeah. And that's what's going on right now. When football wins at Nebraska, all boats rise. I mean, it's been the best month of October we've had together on air in years. I mean, since 2016. Technically, Nebraska hasn't had an undefeated October since 2001.
Just crazy.
I mean, it's just, when you think about what the last month has done for everybody, when you have such a passionate fan base and you feed them with wins, all of a sudden things look a lot better.
Yeah, it doesn't look ugly when you win. 31-14, you'll take that every week if they're coming up out on the winning side. We'll see if it goes 4 in a row for the Huskers. They'll go for 4 straight wins, and bowl eligibility Saturday, 11 a.m. kick at Michigan State. It's on FS1.